Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our broadcast on today. We want to welcome all of you who are joining us live. Also, those of you who will be watching the replay, we want to welcome you to our time on this evening. I am Tamara P. Jones, founder of Beautifully Bold Women, where we are a community of women of faith who desire to live in the beauty of our purpose, align with God's agenda, and have success and serenity God's way. We are a community about supporting, encouraging, and empowering women. And we are so glad you decided to tune in on tonight or watch the replay. I want you also, those of you who are joining in live, I want you to take some moments right now real quickly and go ahead and tag someone and tell them they need to get in here and hear this broadcast on this evening. You can tag them on social media, on our Instagram page. You can also, of course, send the link to YouTube so they can come right here and be with us on this evening because we're going to have a great time on tonight. I'm so excited about the conversation that we're having, which is going to be on the pull of purpose. And so I hope you all are just as excited as I am. This is always a time in the making when we have an opportunity to have beautifully bold women come on and share their story, share their heart. And I'm just so happy that I get the opportunity to connect with so many amazing women. And on tonight, you will hear from one of those women as we're going to have a very candid conversation on the pull of purpose. Everyone understands and knows that, and if we don't know, we do have a purpose. We have a purpose that has been ordained by God. Each of us have a very unique purpose. There is no carbon copy. God, just like he gave us a different fingerprint, he's given each of us a purpose in the earth, something he's called each of us to do, what he's created us to do. Each of us have assignment. We have a calling. We have a destiny to fulfill that only you can do it. This is not one thing where you say, tag, you're it. No, God says you're it. I've given you a purpose. I've given you what I desired and put you in the earth to do. And so purpose is one of those things that truly gives life meaning. And I find that purpose is one of those things also that it calls us higher, ladies. A lot of times we have to understand that we're called for more than just existing. We're called for the things that God has placed in us. And we have to understand that there's a treasure in us and the purpose that when we begin to mine it, it begins to show us all the beautiful things that we have been created to do, that we don't even always know, but God knows, right? And so the beautiful thing about purpose is being able to mine and unearth what's already down on the inside of you, that God has already placed in you in this generation for you and only you to do. And that's what I believe separates all of us. Purpose separates us because no one has been designed with a purpose that you've been given. God is the manufacturer, and he has called you to do something in the earth that he has not called anyone else to do. And that's how beautiful we have been created. We have been created and called specifically for what God has ordained for us to do. And so I'm so excited on this evening to have another beautifully bold woman. She's an ambassador in our community. She is someone who I've had the pleasure to meet in person last September. We have a mutual friend, and this meeting of ours that we had last September was about 9 months to a year in the making. Our mutual friend said, "You've got to meet her." And I tell you, once we met, we just clicked, and it has been wonderful just sharing our stories, sharing our journey. And there's always so much that I learn when I speak with this young woman each time about her story, about the great things that she is doing. And I just always love having time and having conversation with her. And so I truly wanted to have her on this evening to talk with us about the pull of purpose, because her story resonates with that pull. And so I knew that she would be a very great person to share her heart and be able to connect with those of you out there who may, struggle with finding your purpose or may know your purpose, but how do I walk in it? And so we want to give you that confidence, that boldness to be able to walk into your purpose and understand that pull is something that we're called higher to, all of us, to move in it. So I'm happy to introduce Miss Nia Condrey. She is the owner and broker of Purpose One Realty. She absolutely absolutely loves what it is that she does. She has managed over $500 million in assets and sales. She is licensed in 5 states, expanding territory. She is a woman who is, making moves. She's on the move. And I believe she's not only going to leave a legacy for her children, but for her children's children. So I'm so excited to introduce and bring to our broadcast Miss Nia Condrey.
Thank you, Tamra.
There she is. This is so. Oh, my pleasure. Let me tell you something. Getting you on here, I was excited. It's like soon as God gave me the thought around the pull of purpose, because we're going to be having a series of conversations on purpose. And we know that our community is all about helping women align with their purpose. And so when I thought of the pull of purpose, I immediately thought of you, because from hearing your story, the first time that, I heard your story, of course, was in a public domain, but then having the opportunity to talk with you privately, one-on-one, at different times, it's like, it always resonates with me, and your authenticity, the way in which you share, is just so heartfelt. And when we get on, we can, like girls, we get on there and we just do what we do. But I said, I said, somebody else has to feel this goodness, this essence, because, I believe that the space that we share tonight is going to bless somebody without a doubt. I don't believe anything is by happenstance. I believe just like we individually have a purpose, God also has a purpose for why he brings us together. And this moment, this time, I believe was housed in destiny for us to be here on tonight. So I thank you and honor you for, taking time out of your busy schedules to be here on tonight so that someone can glean, I believe, the precious jewels that you have to share with us. But I want to just share with the audience that understanding purpose, we all know, is so very critical to life, to live in power, to live with joy, to live with abundance. And quite frankly, ladies, for us to truly live in a space of fulfillment, I believe that, we all have skills, we have talents, we have gifts, we've got different personalities, but it all leads us to that path of purpose. And I believe that when we move into that a place of purpose, there's ease there because it connects us with the creator. So it begins to allow us to really blossom into who God has called us to be. I believe it's not only just spiritual, but it's also mental, because we have to really decide and understand, who am I really? What have I been called to do? Right? Who am I called to impact? Who am I called to serve? It's so important for us to really be clear about that. And so I know that Nia has come into a space of clarity, but also we have to understand that there's been a time where, we did not know, we were not following the path that God, had for us. And so I want to share with you, Nia, because I know that, or share with the audience that you and I have talked, but so many times and for years you had struggled, I believe, to embrace your purpose. And it wasn't something that was hidden. Like, you shared, you knew it, right? But it wasn't something that was hidden, but you had to come to a place of acknowledging it, right? Come to a place of being able to surrender to it and move into the flow of purpose. And so, of course, I know your story, but your story continues to evolve. And there's so much, like many women, we have so many layers to us and so many things that sometimes until we're having that conversation, it doesn't even come out of us. But I want you to share, on your heart, as if it was the first time you and I talk. This is for the audience. I know this is for the people that we know will be blessed by your story. But you can just share, on your heart, your story with us.
I appreciate you, Tamra. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm so blessed and excited. My story is long. And let me just say, as you were speaking, I was just like, oh, wow, it sounds so good. But I can tell you that I am still in the pull process. Okay. I am still in the pull process. And I've actually found joy in my journey. It's not easy. So I guess I could start off by letting the audience know that I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I have 3 beautiful daughters, 26, 22, and 14, and they are my world. So I'm like the mama bear of real estate. So I had my oldest daughter when I was 16 years old, and I was still in high school. I was in 11th grade. And I can say that growing up, I was always good at school. I was always, I always made good grades, and school came pretty easy to me. But um, as I stated in the past, I was kicked out of 3 schools in my life, unfortunately. So, leading up to having my daughter at 16. And so we're talking elementary school, middle school, and high school. Each year, I mean, each level. Um, and For various reasons, I was just not making good choices. I wasn't making good choices. And school was never the problem. I was the problem, right? I was the problem, and I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time, right? They weren't good decisions. I still make poor decisions sometimes, today. But um, after I had my first daughter, a friend of mine always says that, um, make sure you're not trying to prove yourself, right? So when I was younger, um, I used to, be somewhat of ashamed. I was a teenage mom, and I never wanted to be like that. Wasn't my vision for myself. I wanted to be a high school math teacher. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a high school math teacher as I like calculus. I was like, oh, this is fun. I love numbers. And so, I thought that, that's what I was going to do. So I actually enrolled in Duquesne University. I got accepted. My entrance letter was about what I had experienced up until that point of graduation from high school, right? So it was very personal. I got accepted, and I was going to school for math and secondary education. And then I got pregnant with my second daughter, and I took a pause from that. And then after that, I went ahead and finished my bachelor's degree, and then I went and got my master's degree. But throughout that time, I worked. I had a full-time job. When I had my first two daughters, there was a point in time when I had 3 jobs. I was working. Um, I was working at a bank. I worked and did telemarketing at night, and I also worked at a hair store on the weekends. And I would take my kids to work at the hair store on the weekends. So I had all 3 of those jobs all at one time, and I kind of moved through life with the motivation that I'm going to take care of my kids, that I was a single mom. So my motivation was I need to feed my kids, right? Like who else if I don't work all these jobs and do all this stuff, if I don't get these degrees, um, if I don't get a good corporate job, then one, what I used was my kids. I used that as my motivation, and that was the case for a while until I think things may have changed to career, like being motivated maybe by career. I don't want to say that the motivation wasn't my kids, but as they grew older, then that started to shift a little bit. So I was like, okay, I have all these degrees now. I should be, doing this and that and making, X amount of dollars. And so, I was in that place. Right. And um, there was a point in time where I was working, and my daughter, she was struggling with some things, and and she was a teenager at the time. I was working in recruitment, and I left that position to be home with her. And at that time, I was still living at home in Pittsburgh. By then, I had met my husband, and I had actually had my third daughter by then, and we were. We were financially stable enough for me to do that, and it was something that was really on my heart to do. So it was nothing. I had support at church. I was teaching first grade Sunday school, and things were good. um, I was really trying to focus on her, a lot of things for me, and so I was able to grow my business back home, and I fell in love with real estate. I mean, I was pretty much the start of it, I started to build my business and get clients. I had family, friends, referrals. I mean, my business in PA was based on referrals. And at the time, I worked for Coldwell Banker, and it was it was okay. Like I didn't have too many issues as far as like working for that company, but um, with real estate, it's not constant. So I would, I would go back to work. I would go back and find, I would get discouraged, and I would be like, no, I have all these degrees, and I got kids to feed, and I'm gonna, go back and get a job because I'm employable, right? And so I would do it. I had done it so many times, and I kept, yeah, but I never gave up my licenses. I sold real estate the whole time, even when I was working in corporate, and I just loved it. I couldn't give it up, and so there were times where I would be, and then eventually we moved here to Maryland area, to the DMV area, and I had to leave my whole business behind. Right. I came to an area where I didn't know anybody. And so I came here and I started to build from there. And I knew even when I was at home, I wanted my broker's license. I knew that. I knew I wanted my own business, my own company. And actually, even before that, God had given me a vision when I was pregnant with my second daughter. I was about 20 years old, and I wrote that down. And what's interesting is it comes back. It's part of the bigger vision that I have now. But I didn't know it at the time. So anyway, my husband, got moved here, and so we came here, and I had to start over, and it was good. I came here, and I did property management down in DC for a little bit, and then like I said, I worked for one of the top 25 builders in the country for some time. So I was able to I managed huge assets in DC, and I managed to just kind of build. I was real estate focused. I wasn't doing anything besides real estate, and I noticed that it was done a little different here. I noticed I know, and I was at the time I was in therapy, and my therapist was like, "Well, you want to know, like, well, what makes your real estate company different?" And all I could think of was like, it was integrity, right? And I know everybody says that, but I've been in this industry for 10 years, and I know that that's not necessarily the case. Um, Situations, circumstances, you live long enough, you see what people make decisions, um, and they lose their integrity when it comes to money. And
Mhm.
um, that can be how it is in this business. And so I saw it a lot, and so I was like, well, I don't operate like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how I want to operate. And I just felt like you can be a good negotiator. You can be a great real estate agent. You don't have to lay down and take anything, but at the same time, you can be fair and honest. About, and you don't have to cut people. And so I said, I want that for my brokerage. And so that's kind of where I decided I wanted to start my own brokerage. There were some things that I witnessed in DC that I wasn't happy with. And so it was like, if you're not, I felt like I could make a difference. I'm like, if I was able to do X, Y, and Z, you know, I wouldn't allow these things, right? Some of the things in property management were, a lot of the tenants were being taken advantage of, huge investors, and um, promises not being kept, and things like that. And DC, if you know, DC is pretty tenant friendly, and it works on both ends. I'll say, some people, do want to play the system, but some people, really needed help, and I would try to help them, and my hands were tied. And so I was like, I can't, I don't like this. I don't like the way this is going. And that is part of my bigger vision. Um, But it definitely started with Purpose One Realty and wanting to also bring agents that had that same mindset. We are servant leaders, and that's what my mission and vision is all about. And so yeah, that's why I started the brokerage. Now, is
Well,
that
that I wanted to step back because there are some things, and I know you got real estate intensive because that's your passion, that's your heart, and I know that. And I even learned some things this evening that when you talk about math and I love numbers, and I was like, oh wait a minute, I didn't even realize that. Of course, real estate, yes, is dealing with numbers, but the fact that you had a heart and passion for that. But I wanted to step back a bit because I know that this pull of purpose and how I know, like I said, I know more about your story. And so the backdrop is you were, in high school and you were talking about going 3 schools, and kicked out of 3 different schools, being a young mom, having 2 daughters, I grew up with a single parent, so I understand that desire I got to do this for my kids. But I know that too, along the path, like you said, you've been in real estate for 10 years while you're doing a corporate career. Some people may not, know you were also, I believe, in HR as well before you even, ventured out into this space as well. But like you said, 10 years. But before that 10 years, just understanding your story and how I believe you knew you were always meant to serve others, to do something different. But at that time, you're just trying to survive, right?
yeah?
But there
Oh,
was a pull, because like I said, it's not that some of us don't know it, but I believe you kind of knew, but their circumstances were what they were, that I'm just in the daily grind. I'm
right,
just trying to be above water. I'm just trying to feed my kids.
right,
Right. So that was a purpose, because we have to understand that purpose also, there's seasons, but sometimes there are things and hindrances that can happen that keep us from what it is that we believe we're called to do. Because I also heard you mention one time we talked about, you always knew,
oh
right?
yeah,
But
I did.
didn't always move in that path. So I want to take us to Purpose One Votes because that is your passion. But I wanted to help people understand that sometimes that knowing, that's the purpose, that innate feeling, the emotions around it. And the longer that we stay off the path, one thing I love about God is that purpose in itself is not something that we move in a straight line to, right? It's not always linear. But I say that detours lead to destiny, and God is so gracious. So he already knew, the things that you were going to come against. But he also knew the things that, Nia had to move through so that he could say, girl, get out the way. I'm trying to show you some things. But, in, like you say, making some
Yeah,
decisions, because God gives us free will, we step into some things that, cause us to delay, but I think still God brings us to a space where it's still on time in him, because there's some lessons,
yeah,
that we learned. There's some, and I'll talk about, and I'll ask you about that, and we can talk about that. But I just wanted to step back a bit, because as you was moving into what I wanted to hear next was the purpose of reality, I wanted to bring us back to understanding that it was something that you knew, it was something that was pulling you, but it was also that life circumstances, being a single mom,
yeah,
very early, a young mom, navigating life, having certain circumstances in your life that, took priority and took precedence to where, hey, I can't even think about me right now.
yeah,
I got these 2 kids that are depending on me and being an example, but still trying to find your own way. But in that, purpose was always pulling you through your corporate career, and then connecting with this mentor, this multi-million dollar mentor that can show you, and then show you the heart
mhm,
around real estate. Like I said,
yeah,
not the dollars, because you know how that operates. When people's hearts are set on money and not mastering, because money has never been a good master, and I teach
right,
that in my other business here. But but just to understand that God was still giving you a glimpse, right?
yeah,
Because once that person took you under their wings and you knew to do something different in, managing those assets, being with the tenants in DC and seeing how things were run, he was like, hey, I've got to do something better. And like I said, purpose calls us higher. So
yeah,
as we're called higher, here comes Purpose One Realty. So that's why I just wanted to
yeah,
grab that piece. I wanted to hang on to that just a minute, just so that just so that we can grab and understand that even in a pull of purpose, there's circumstance situations that, press us, that kind of keep us from maybe moving in that space of prioritizing purpose in the manner. Because when we're young, we're still trying to find our way, and, but we have a knowing. And I just want
right,
that to be evident that it's always innate. We,
yeah,
God places his mark on us. We have Holy Spirit in us. We have his life in us. And so even people who are unbelievers, God, still the breath of God
Yeah.
is in us to know, that something bigger than us, exists. And we didn't come from nothing. We came from something, and that was a big God. So in your journey of real estate, Purpose One Realty, I mean, just to name Purpose One Realty, right? I'm like, okay, where did you, even stepping out, because you're under a mentor, but Purpose One Realty, you're the owner and broker. You're not now working for, this builder or this company. You're not necessarily managing other people's properties. Now you're actually bringing people to properties. You have a property portfolio yourself. Okay, come on, somebody. You're a bad man, but you're all by yourself. So you have learned some things in these 10 years, and now being at the helm of Purpose One Realty and having brokers underneath you. And this, we're talking about just a year and a half time frame that you continue to grow and pretty much build, your empire, if you will. I know sometimes that can be worldly, but in terms of how you're moving, this is what God has purposed you to do, because you're going to make a difference, and you're making a difference, because not in just the brokers' lives that, you actually are able to serve within your company, but the lives that you're touching are the people that you have the ability to represent.
Yeah.
So
And
talk
I
about
have
how this one realty came about.
So, well, one, growing up, my name means purpose. So, as you know, I'm the fifth principal of Kwanzaa, and so my full name, first and middle is Nia Malika. So, growing up, my dad always made sure that I knew that I had a purpose. That Malika was a queen, an African queen, and he never let me forget it. And so, it was fitting, right? One, because that's what my name means, but two, it was important to me to make sure that it was meaningful and that it stood out. I went back and forth about the name. God gave me that name. I
Mm,
wanted to change it. And look,
mm,
my husband was like, "No, babe." I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, and then I went and searched for a logo, and the logo that I selected was there was something spiritual about the logo. And so I was like, I'm not changing the name. So I kept it the same. And everybody to this day is like, where did you get that logo? And it's spiritual. It's all God ordained. He led me to that. He led me to setting up the structure of the business, to be a servant leader and to serve the community and be of service to my agents. That's what I do. I know when I was in real estate, I did not talk to a broker. I couldn't call the broker. I talked to the office manager, or I talked to the people in the office, and I just didn't want to be that. I wanted to. Now, granted, it's a lot of work, and I definitely can't do it by myself, but I wanted to be the one to choose who my agents were going to be. I wanted to be involved in that process, and it's considered a boutique brokerage. I don't know what God has as far as the how big it's going to grow, but um, I wanted people who were like minded, and and it didn't have to be. It wasn't about what they look like or what their beliefs were. It was just, wanting to be of service to other people and help people, right? I think for me, going through all the things that I went through in my life, I found that through real estate, I was able to actually help people very easily. It just came natural to me. And I was like, what is this? I was like, and people were happy. I've had clients from Asia. I've had clients from India. I've had the whole gamut of clients.
international.
Internet, and they were all, and I'm thinking, are they? But it doesn't matter. It was just the experiences. It was, you know, uh, I was born. God gave me a gift of discernment. He gave me a compassionate and empathetic heart. He gave me these things, and people have always oh, Nia, you're too sensitive, But those things are the things that have at times saved my life. Those things are the same things that allow me to relate to people pretty easily, and in a non-judgmental way. And so I was realized that my ministry was people. And so I was like, okay. And it happened to be through real estate. And I noticed that, I was dealing with people who were moving, who were having babies, who were getting married, who were relocated to another job, who had a death in their family, they're selling an estate or whatever. And it was easy. It was easy for me because I had gone through life and experience, and I had the gifts that God gave me. I was able to really relate to people. People trust me. They feel like when I am saying something, I mean it, and I'm compassionate and I'm honest, and I am, and I mean well, always. So it just and so in real estate, you don't want somebody who's just going to be like, taking your money, because that could happen. You can have somebody just going to promise you, give you the world, give you all the smiles, come in a nice suit and a nice car, and you're just another number and a transaction. Yeah. And so it was never that way for me. And so it just worked. It's more of an organic thing for me, and I think that shows up in sometimes in my productivity, but I'm okay with that because just like at home, if you grow organically, the business and the income and the money will come. And so that's kind of the season that I'm in now, and I'm okay with that. So I just kind of am trying to grow strategically and responsibly.
And you said something very key because, like I said, our personality, all of that is a part of our path and purpose. But you said your ministry is people. Mm-hmm. Those of us who are joining us live, I want you to type ministry is people, because our purpose, Nia, it's not about us. Those watching live, watching them, it's not about us. Our purpose is about serving others. Our purpose, God did not place us here. This is a news flash for ourselves. Right. He didn't place us here, for all the things that we want. He placed us here because he said, I have an assignment for you. Our purpose is an assignment in the earth that God created us to do. And until we fulfill that assignment, for most, you're not going anywhere, right? Yes, we know if we don't obey, disobedience, certain things can, cause things to happen, in our life. But we have to understand that we're called higher. We're called for others. It's not about what we can get in life. God sent us here as a deposit in earth for what we can give. Mm-hmm. And when we have given and done the things that he's called us to do, and that's why I think it's such an intangible pull. It's such an intangible pull to purpose, that until we're doing that thing that God created us to do, and a lot of times it doesn't look like what we think it's going to look like, but mm-hmm. we can see that it's still part of who we are, even if it doesn't come in a package, but it connects with us. Like I said, purpose connects us to our Creator. And so I think that's so beautiful when you said ministry is people. So I wanted the audience to kind of grab that, because when we're talking about purpose is not about self. Purpose is understanding self, so you can understand who God has called us to do, what he's called us to do, and who he's called us to serve, because it's never about us. And until we understand that, because I think sometimes, we look at the world's view on things, and we know the world is always upside down, and God's always turning things right side up, and will at the end of the day, end of time, turn it back right side up. But we think that, I got these good gifts to do this or that or the other with. But at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's about serving people. So having the heart for people, as you shared, that's what sets you apart. And remember, I said earlier that your purpose, it sets you apart. There's nobody that can do real estate like Nia. There's no broker that can broker like Nia, right? We got some people right now wishing Nia was still on the team, because now you have created your own team. And I did. doing things, and even at a higher level, coming into your own space, you can now decide how you want to do things that, like you said, in the industry, it's not always done that way. I know in another industry that I'm in, you have to, I bring God into it, right? And sometimes we're called in those spaces to bring the light, to bring the understanding, to bring God's way. We're beautifully bold when we're about doing God's way, and we're about, doing it differently. And God is doing it differently, and he does it differently through the people who he has ordained in the earth to be here. So this is good stuff, good stuff.
Let me share. Can I share something with you real quick? This just happened to me. I have some clients that I just recently, they want to build a portfolio. So they're investor clients, and they asked me a question that I actually never received in 10 years, right? Things have happened, but I won't go into those stories. But they said, have you ever gone into a house that was haunted? And do people have to disclose if the house is haunted? And I was like, well, I can tell you a story. I was with a client, not them, a different client. And I walked into the door to open the box and the lockbox. And the Holy Spirit revealed to me, this was probably a $600,000 house, all four sides brick in this beautiful community. Sorry, you got me tearing up over here, so my nose is running a little bit. But in the community. And so she knew me enough she must have seen something at the front door. And so I'm telling my new client this story. And I was like, so I said, well, when I went in the house, we looked past what was there. And she said, so Nia, what happened to you at the door? And I was like, she's like, something happened. And I was like, she noticed, right? And because I think what I did was I went to open the door and then I stepped back. And there was nothing there. There was no reason for me to step back. Nobody was there. Nobody opened the door. So I was just like, I think that's what it was that what she noticed now that I think about it. I stepped back before I finally went in with the key. And I said to her, I said, and she's still my friend to this day. She bought a beautiful home. I don't know what the word was that I used at the time, but I just basically was like, the house is still love in here. And you can, if you do like this house, I don't feel like, I mean, sometimes there's things and I called my grandmother. I said, Grandma, let me tell you what happened to me today. And she said, well, Nia, you're the light. You're supposed to be the light. You're supposed to pray and cast that spirit out of that house. And I was like, what?
And that's the spiritual takeover, really. I mean, you got a clean house in the spiritual sense, clean house.
Yes. And so my new clients, I told them that story and they were like, oh yeah, I need you to let me know if that happens to you. You make sure we're the people that want to know if that happens to you. Cause I was like, some people would think it was weird, or I was crazy. And I knew that she wouldn't think that when I shared it, but and those are things that, that happened. And she wasn't going to buy that house after I told her that. She may have, but I was putting myself in a position where, we weren't gonna write an offer, and it wasn't about the offer and it wasn't about the money. And she asked, so I shared, and I was honest with her. So those are the types of things sometimes that happen, but it's fun.
And that's how God positioned you because we have to understand that there's different places that God puts us all, in secular places and other places to be, like you said, to be that light. And so you're that light in real estate. You're that light to, not necessarily a gatekeeper, but you're helping spiritually, enlighten your clients that other people, like you said, they would not have been. And so God has placed you in these positions because, this is our people's homes. This is their dwelling where they will live. And so that's a big part of, and then where they're investing their money for 30 years, right? Their mortgages and things like that. So, definitely, know that that's a place that God has positioned you in the marketplace, we will say. So I want to move forward because there's some more questions. Huh?
It's kind of scary, but
when we have God, like you said, we don't have to fear. God is not giving us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. And so you were positioned at that time in that place, and I said, never by happenstance, but God knew. And you being able to share that information was also to redirect.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
person to the place that truly, God had ordained for them. But I want to talk about some of the things, because it's two things that I wanted to ask. But one was some things that you learned along the journey, but also I think you're kind of sharing those in what you have, and if there's other things you want to share. But I also want to get to what's nuggets of wisdom are you able to share that you've gained that has anchored you in purpose? Because I know there's nuggets that I've gained in my walk with purpose, because I too was in corporate America. I leaped 20 plus years ago when it wasn't popular to do so.
Yeah.
So I'm a leaper. I'm the person that I'm going to jump from the mountain, and I'm going to grow my wings on the way up because I'm trusting God. And so I know there's some things that we learn along the journey. There's some nuggets. I know for me, I had to detach from the outcomes,
Yeah.
because that's God's business. He knows the end from the
Yeah.
beginning. My job is to be obedient. My job is to move. My job is to walk in purpose. So, what are some of the nuggets of wisdom that you can say that you have gained that's anchored you in your purpose?
In doing this, when I, decided to start the company and really focus 100% and put my everything into it. Um, some of the things that I learned to just give myself grace. And the other thing is that, you know, I noticed that God, he's moving me at a pace in which um, I'm ready for each step in each season. So like there are some things that I want that I know I can't get yet. There's some things that I want that I know I'm not quite prepared for. Um, and and so that's why I said to you the other day that the overflow that I desire is in order and it's in obedience. But God's provision is wonderful. Like I mean, and as it stands right now, there are some things though that I've been um, instructed to do that I need to do, and I will do. And so that's when I know that, and I don't think it's, that's going to be it, but I think it's going to overflow again. It's just, he's growing me every single step. And then he's like, here you go. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, oh my, thank you. And so it's like, it's the journey actually is pretty fun to watch. One, because I'm not doing like the regular kind of rat race. Like I have to wake up every day. And yes, the joy is in the journey. I have to wake up every day and, thank God, be grateful, uh, even if things aren't going 100%. And I have to wake up every day and just trust that, he's going to provide and it's going to be okay. And because starting a business is not easy, it's very hard. It's,
Right.
oh my gosh, like I was like, woo, what did you do? But I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So and he has provided to this day and to this point, even more so than what I had even expected. But so I guess all that to say, I just think that I give myself something. I give myself every day a new day. And it's a new day for me to be grateful for what I have and to see what God's going to do for me that day and to thank Him, for what He has done. So every day I can, I'm not just waking up and, so I have to be. So really, I guess in a sense, the pull of purpose is also pulling me closer to God because I now have the time to fellowship with Him regularly. And I now have the things that I can't see. I don't have that paycheck, that salary coming in, you know, to ignore that time of fellowship that I need to have, or to be present in the moment where God is saying, this is what I'm gonna do for you, or this is what you need to do, or this is what you need to stop doing, so that you can get to the next level. So I can show you, what. So it's slowed me down in a sense to where he's pulling me. As much as I'm being pulled to purpose, I'm being pulled closer in my relationship with Christ. So it's good.
Yeah, so he slowed you down though to speed you up because we know your days are very full,
Yeah,
and you got a lot going on most days. And then with brokers under you, you got calls, you got things,
yeah,
going on all the time. But one of the things I think that the pull of purpose also creates the intentionality.
yeah,
The intentionality of how we live our days, because
yeah,
even like you said, you had a corporate job and was doing real estate on the side. So although being your own boss and being an entrepreneur, being a broker, it does come where you still have to prioritize your time in a
yeah.
sense. You
Mhm.
may have more time to say, I can now decide what I'm going to do in my day, but it doesn't make that you have really more time. It's the way you manage your time. And it's also the way I believe that you are now pulled into your
Spend my
purpose,
time.
that you
Yeah,
have now decided, I've been pulled into this. So the person who has given me this purpose, I've got to now lay at the heart of the Father.
yeah.
That's what I say. I gotta lay. I'm like John.
Yes.
I'm on the bosom
Uh-huh.
of my Father.
Every
I'm on
day.
the bosom of Daddy, right?
Every
Because
day.
I need to hear, the heart of God. And that's the thing I think too that we share about being, entrepreneurs, and for me, like you say, being employable, but choosing myself, to
Yeah.
fire my job when it wasn't even that. It wasn't even. I mean, 20 plus years ago, nobody was doing that at a good. And I'm saying that to say that that's what purpose will do. It's going to pull you in. I knew that when I was in that office and I heard those birds chirping outside, and that one day was just that gap of time, and they did that for the 7 years I was there, right in that office.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a gap that something clicks.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Well,
leave right then, but there's something clicked. And when you said this, and I hope the people who are watching and who watch the replay will understand, you said the overflow is in the order and the obedience.
yeah.
I don't know if out there in internet land, YouTube land, Instagram land, you caught that. But that was some good meat. And I hope we can get in the comments where somebody can put in there, the overflow is in the order and obedience. You and I both, and the commonalities here is that there was order to it. Yes, different things occurred in life, and sometimes we're not ready for the things, even though
Yeah.
purpose is pulling us. God is also training us
Yeah.
while we're in the place of moving in our purpose, and so with that training and with that doing, the order and the obedience is so important. A lot of times we don't realize that obedience is better than sacrifice, right? And so that surrender, that relinquishing, that acquiescing to the purpose, you can have a job, and it could be a job that you enjoy doing, that you feel like my purpose is helping people on this job. There's nothing wrong with the workplace because God has given you that space. There are people in a workplace who they know that's part of their purpose. That's what God called them to do. And that's wonderful. And that's a beautiful thing. And even in that space, how are we stewarding it? Because even the overflow, whether you're in a business, whether you're in business as an entrepreneur, business owner, or whether in the workforce, in the workplace, right?
Mm.
There's still an order that
Right.
God has, and there's an obedience that takes place where you can have the overflow.
Yeah.
And the overflow is not just the salary, but how you feel when you leave that place, how you know you made a difference, how you know that you can come home and say, I made an impact. And I know that what I do glorifies God, because we do need lights in the workplace. We're very clear about that. But I think that, and I hope somebody grabbed that, the order and obedience is so important in God, because the order of how we go about our life,
Yeah.
putting him first in our life, prioritizing him, then he can show us more, because we have to be real, Nia. We have to be
Yeah.
real with out here. The path of purpose is not easy. It's not always something you're going to elect to do. Sometimes not
Nope.
always it's your passion, but it may not always make you feel good. Okay.
No.
Purpose comes with a cost, and we're going to have a
Yes, it
series
does.
list. The next
Yes,
one's going
yes,
to really
it does.
blow our minds. So y'all keep coming tuning in. But I'm telling you, it's not
Yes,
always
yes.
going to be the thing that's going to make you feel good all the time. It's not going to be the thing that sometimes you know it, but the understanding of it, you could be misunderstood, right? There are certain things that can happen in the process of being pulled into purpose and moving in your purpose that can sometimes cause us to say, no, God, this
It's
ain't glamorous.
uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
It's
It can be.
uncomfortable. He always puts us in a space of being uncomfortable. And it's like, God, this ain't glamorous, but it's good. Because I
Yeah.
know you work things together for my good, because when I'm in order,
Mhm.
when I'm obeying, When I'm surrendering to what you called me to do, as you said, the overflow, what God gives us, the Bible says that he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. Now imagine the things that you're thinking about, that you're asking him for, that's not in your purpose he does, but what imagine.
I know.
The fire is coming on. When you're doing it in his purpose and you're doing the thing that he very much sent you in the earth, called you and you alone to do, and you start operating and moving in that thing, you're talking about overflow. That's the thing where God says eyes have not seen and ears have not heard what he'll do in your life when you're flowing and when that pull comes and you're acquiescing and you're flowing and you're surrendering to it. So when you said that, I was like, woo, girl, I got to write that down. You got to make sure you tap on that again and share, because I think
I tap on it every day, Tamara. Because it means, it's so many things, it's so many things that he's put on my heart to do and say. And I was cleaning my house, and sometimes I had a conversation with God, and he told me to text somebody and make sure they knew that it wasn't he had a message for somebody. So I gave him the mess, and I'm cleaning. I'm on the floor in the bathroom cleaning the floor, and I'm like, okay, I'll tell him. And then I'm on the bathroom cleaning the floor, and I was like, he won't let me. I need to do it right now. And I'm in the bathroom cleaning the floor, and I'm like, okay. And then I thought to myself, well, God, I think he wants me to do it right now. So I don't know what's going on right now. So I left my little rag, took my gloves off, went, got my phone, sent the text, and that was, that's like order. That's like, no, I want you to do this right now. And there are times when he tells me, I want you to do this right now, and I don't listen. And so I know that order is just as important as me being obedient. And so, so I'm working on it. I work on it, daily. I work on it daily. It's not, it's not something that I'm 100% on, but I try, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. It's a little scary because it's uncomfortable, because that means I got to make some serious changes, and I got to do some things that I wouldn't normally do. I wouldn't normally do a podcast that's going to be on the internet.
Yeah, I know.
Here I go.
It's never about what's convenient, right? Right. God is not really concerned about us being comfortable or being convenient. He's about us doing what he called us to do and what he purposed us to do. And when we can get, like I said, ourselves out of the way and understand we're here to serve, others, that we're here for something greater. We're here to be called higher into what he's designed our life to be. Before we were in our mother's womb, he had a plan, he had a purpose. And that thing, God says that, his purpose will stand. Proverbs 19:21 tells us, a man plans in his heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So we can buck it, we can fight it, he pull it, we can surrender to it, or what we can deal with consequences and be delayed, and and all those things. So I just love because I'm learning so much more. Like even some things you're sharing right now, I'm sitting here like, oh, that's good. That I'm learning more about even some of your stories and things that you're sharing. But one of the things, and I know our time is running out, I want to get some questions from our viewers. They have questions here. So if you got questions, I want you to begin to start putting those in the box there for us, because we would love to get your questions for Nia while she's on. Also, if there's questions for me, of course, we want to be able to answer your questions. But if you got questions, please put your questions in the comments. We want to see them. We want to be able to answer them. And so before we actually get there, I want to take a minute and just talk about, and we talked a little bit, but the challenges that we've got to overcome to experience living in a life of purpose. Because I always can talk about me. My challenges, I believe, was the challenge of doing right and learning to be still. God dealt with me on being still, the challenge of doing, and not only just being still, but the challenge of doing and surrendering, the challenge of not doing and becoming. because not always about the do, it's about the becoming, and what he wants us to do. And there's seasons, that we have. And so what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, or challenges that you've been experiencing to live this life of purpose? I mean, I think we've touched on some, but just as we kind of round this out.
I think mostly for me is understanding that I'm able, I'm capable. And really for me, this is more of a mental challenge that I've been experiencing, which is like, and I like I told you yesterday, like you're only as good as your team, right? So like you can't, even though it's your purpose, it's not meant for you to do it alone, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
like, so I mean, I have the support that is like no other from people I barely know, people I've known forever. People, I mean, I'm like, really, God, I mean, people, he's just putting people in place and in position. And just that one of the challenges is receiving that support, receiving that help, receiving those compliments, receiving that, let me connect you with this person. And I'm like, whoa, this is really happening, and just understanding that this is all God's plan. And just like keeping it in perspective too, and not taking advantage and things like that. So the challenge for me is just accepting those things, and I just appreciate it so much. It's so crazy. But for me, and the reason it's a challenge is because I've done everything by myself for so long.
Yes.
I never had to, I wasn't questioning, I wasn't including, I wasn't running anything by. Okay. I was the answer. So, which is crazy. And I know that now. And I know that, it's important to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are as a business owner. And, I have one of my realtors who is a marketing genius. Okay. She markets like it would take me 5 hours to do what she does in 3 minutes. And I'm just like, I don't understand. I'm like, okay, and so, I'm finding that I'm able to identify people's gifts and talents too. And it takes a load off of me. I'm like, thank you, Lord, because, and so everybody gets to shine. Everybody gets to shine, and everybody gets to operate in their purpose and in their gift. And so I love it.
And I think the challenge too, and I think I've been in that space where it's like you're doing it all, but the vision is so big you can't do it all. God is not. No. You're serving others, but you're also being served in the vision, because God knows that people will come alongside of you, like a Nehemiah. He's going to come alongside you to help you build what He's called you, what He's purposed and put in your heart to do. And so I think it's just so important for all of us to really learn the lesson that even though we're walking and God has given us the purpose, He's also given us the people to walk with us. But one of the caveats I will share is we also can't always look at the package. Mm-hmm. And I say that in regards to, I think about Samuel when God told him to go and anoint, the son of Jesse, and go to the house and anoint the king. And he was thinking, oh, the first one, oh, he looks good. He's this. And we sometimes can have people on our path because, like yourself, I'm also a connector, right? And sometimes you believe that I've connected, and then God, things will happen. I'm like, is this a divine connection that God's sending me? And you kind of look for things and think that is it. And sometimes that's not it. And God said, whoa, wait a minute. Nope, that ain't who the oil's gonna flow on. And so sometimes the challenge is like you said, it's the discerning. Yeah. And I think in the path of purpose, we also have to discern, God, who is it that you're sending? Because we can miss it. We can make mistakes and think. And I've been in those places that this was a divine connection, and realize and find out through, some of the disappointments, that wasn't it. And having to focus once again on God and say, well, wait a minute, God, and then find out, okay, this is what I did. I thought that because of XYZ, that was going to be the case. And so now I realize that, and understand that God, he looks at the heart, man looks at the outward appearance. So I've had to change, and I'm sure you in this path of purpose and what you do, your perspective. God have mercy. My perspective has changed on a lot of things, and seeing through the eyes of God, because what I find in this season as I moved on my purpose, the things that I thought and didn't know and how things were going to line up and who was going to come in my path, I clap when I get excited. It does not look like what I thought it would look like, but blessed be the name of the Lord, that when you can see and ask God to show you with spiritual eyes, what it is that you need to see in the spiritual realm, so that when that person comes, you're like, nope, that's God. You're not looking at the perspective of what you thought it would look like. Let's be real. We're flesh, we're in the world, and we're constantly, that's actually at odds with our spirit. And so, on the path of purpose, it does, like you say, it heightens you to connect with God in a way that I'm on this path. I don't want to miss it, God. How about that? I don't want to miss it. And so you begin to do things in a way that your perspective changes. And so that's all I'm gonna say on that point, because there's so much richness that I know we both can share. There's so much more information that I know that you and I have talked about that, we really wanted to go through, but I wanted to see if there's any questions. Does anyone have any questions? I'm hoping that this, and I know that this is a blessing to those of you on here, but particularly for those who will be in virtual land and will be able to listen to this replay. But if you have any questions that you have or desire to know from Nia or myself, yes, we're both, happen to be entrepreneurs, but we've both been in the corporate workplace. Purpose is the thing that God has given me to truly work with women on. This is what our community is about, is living in the beauty, because there's beauty in our purpose, right? It's living in the beauty of that purpose, aligning with God's agenda, and having success and surrendering his way. So do we have any questions? Any questions? Want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't see any questions coming through, but if you got questions, you can put those in real quickly. All right. Okay. If there's no questions, Nia, do you have any last thoughts? I know we talked about a lot tonight, and we've talked about a lot behind the scenes that we didn't even capture because the time always goes so quickly. But I want to, give you that opportunity to share any last thoughts.
I don't. I can say where we can be located, which is purposeonerealty.com. And we also are on Facebook and Instagram at Purpose One Realty. So, but no, I don't think I have anything else other than thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me be a part of Beautifully Bold Women. And I mean, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. This was, I was nervous, but I feel like, it was a great conversation, and we could go on forever, Tamara. So, but do you think that purpose unfolds over time? Absolutely. Because I'm still in that. Absolutely. I think because God is growing you all the time, right? God is like showing me different things about myself, about other people, about ways of being, right? And just like, it's just, and things I need to remove, things I need to add into my life. And so it's a journey, and I don't think it's ever, I think it's going to be on. I don't expect it to end. I don't expect to get to a point where I'm like, I've made it. Yep. That's not even an expectation for me. So I like somebody posted, like I was saying, the joy is in the journey. You got to find the joy in the journey, because it's not going to stop. Yeah.
And God's only going to give us what we can handle at that point. We came with a purpose. Right. God knows the purpose. We walk in the purpose. And as we walk in it, he begins to reveal. It's almost like the light at the next step. Yes. When you walk in it, we want to, when we delight ourselves in him, when we walk to take the steps that he calls us to take, purpose unfold. I think we do have a good grounding, if you will, because like I said, it's in us of what we're called to do. We
I
have our
can see
skills,
it.
our
It's a
talents, our
vision.
personalities, our life. When we look at our life experiences, we can see that thread of commonality to let us know we're on the right track. But I do believe definitely that, yes, what we're called to do, who we're called to become, unfolds over time because we're becoming and we're walking in it and we're growing in it. Because if God showed us everything that he was going to do through our life, you talking about you were scared tonight. Okay, God's got great things for you. God move when he shows you everything, because as big as he is and what he purposed you to do, we can't take it in one dose, right? And then there's seasons to purpose. So what God is showing us in one season of our life of purpose, he shows us something different in another season. But we have to be, I think, in tuned enough, connecting so that we can see, this is where God's doing it. Yep, that's it right there, and keep moving. And that's also the thing that builds up our faith.
Yeah, it does.
To keep walking in it, because like I said, it's not easy, right? Because God gave it to us, it's easy. No, God's the big God, right? And his assignments that he has in our life. But it takes us being able to understand there's risk in purpose.
Right.
There is sometimes not only the risk of purpose, there could be some isolation when you're walking in purpose, because like I said, you could be misunderstood. Everybody don't always understand why you do what you do, but when you know God has called you to a purpose, you stand in that, because the approval that we desire, particularly as beautifully bold women, and particularly as women of faith, Christian women, is we desire the approval of God more than the praises of men. We have to understand that. And purpose is not about the praise. It's about who God called us to do, what he called us to do. And so sometimes that doesn't always give us the applause.
Right.
Right.
About pleasing, do what's
but it's about,
yeah.
I get the applause, but I'm getting approved. Come on, somebody say that. I may not get the applause from men, but I get the approval from God. And that's what purpose will do. It will give you approval, but you may not always see the applause. Paul didn't always see the approval, and he definitely always didn't get the, he didn't always see the applause, but he definitely was approved by God. And so we have to understand that we walk those similar journeys, the same that those in the Bible walk. We walk those similar journeys, but now we're on this side where we have the whole book.
Yeah,
we have the whole story unfolding. We don't have the piece, but we have the Bible. We have the full picture that God has blessed us with, to be able to know that we can be anchored in him, knowing that the purpose that we have is not just for us, but for others, and to stand firm in that, even in evil days, because at the end of the day, it's going to take so much more. And yes, approval from God, it's going to take so much more for us to understand that purpose is by design from God. And it may not always make sense to man, but it makes sense to you because you know God is calling. We have to be able to stand firm in it. Not everybody wants to stand firm and actually walk in their path of purpose because they want approval, they want to be liked, or they want. Your purpose is not always going to get you liked.
Yeah.
Stephen was the first martyr. When God shined the light on him, he spoke in the spirit. Like, there are certain things that God purposes to do. It's not going to always feel good, and to us, it's not going to always feel good to other people. It's not going to be what people understand, but it's for our good. And that's what I think we have to understand, because the world talks about your passion, your passion, your passion. Your passion, your passions are part of your purpose, but your passion, what your passion is to do, your purpose lines up with your mission. And sometimes, they don't always intersect the way we think that it's going to intersect. And so, we got to make sure that we kind of get these things, right in our minds and align ourselves with God, because what he says is always different from the world. And there's so much more I can talk about that, and I'm going to leave that right there. But I want to encourage everyone to make sure that you share with, your friends, the Beautifully Bold Women community, because we are growing. We have some great things that are coming up. We had the announcements in our video when we first started, but if you're not on our email list, I want to encourage you, get on our subscriber list. You can get the announcement, the updates. When I tell you we're on the move, all the things that we're doing to truly serve and to be able to continue to undergird each other on this path of purpose, because it's not always easy, but we need to know that we are women walking in the beauty of our purpose, that we're going to align with God. We're going to do what God has called us to do, and we're going to make a difference, as Nia said, and we're going to make an impact in the earth, all for Christ. So I want to thank you all for being with us. Again, join the community, like and subscribe. Come on, y'all. Make sure y'all like and subscribe to us on YouTube so that when we go live again, you will get the notification. And also, please follow us on Instagram at Beautifully Bold Women, because that's another place that you can stay connected to our community. So, Nia, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. We went over our time, but you know what? It's all about God and what these we lie, we doing what we do, and this is how we do it, because we truly understand that it's not about us, but it's about the message and the things that God wants to get through us. So I appreciate you. I thank you so much for your time. And yes, all of you who have been on with us live, we thank you. And for those who are watching a replay, we know and believe that this will be a blessing to your life. So thank you, everyone, and understand that there is a pull of purpose to walk in it, and know that you were called and destined for great things in God. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.